Welcome back to This We Believe, a celebration of women and the philosophies that govern their daily lives. I'm Nicole Robinson-Carroll. The 72 essays that were submitted for this program are available on our website, WEKU-FM. The next stop on our trip through the hearts and minds of women is in Olive Hill, where we learn that what are just words to some can mean so much more to others. That's what essayist Lori Zientara believes.
I believe in the power of poetry. I believe that poetry has tremendous power. I remember the poems my mother shared with me as a child and those I have shared with my own children. How close we felt at those times. Those were such precious moments. The poems learned at school, shared by teachers interested in expanding our little minds. I still remember those poems, don't you? I remember a few of the poems I wrote as school assignments, some more than 50 years ago, and some more recently as I started college at the age of 50. How the writing of those poems changed me by giving me a newfound self. I believe in the power of writing a poem that touches others' hearts and minds, making a connection that never gets broken. I marvel at how we are touched by the poetry of Shakespeare or E. E. Cummings, Maya Angelou or Robert Frost, or even one of my fellow college students, a farmer who wrote about the cows in his pasture during a thunderstorm. Poetry grips me and never lets me go. It holds me tight in times of strong emotion. It teaches me in little nuggets to think deeply about life. I love that about poetry. Poetry was a special comfort to my mother and me while she struggled with Alzheimer's. Many times over, I read her Madeline and recited our beloved nursery rhymes. Early on, she would recite or sing them with me. She later struggled to follow my lead. The twinkle in her eye was bright as we enjoyed the power of the sounds together. It brought us together. It made us laugh. It filled us with joy to come full circle together in this delightful play with words. Although as time progressed, she lost the meanings of the words, she never seemed to lose the joy of the sound of poetry. Even as death closed in around her, poetry seemed to comfort her. It certainly comforted me, especially the poetry of the Book of Psalms. Those psalms gained new meaning during that time and gave me new strength, just as much as they seemed to soothe her. I really do believe in the wonderful power of poetry. It is intrinsic to our hearts and minds, and I believe poetry is the stuff that binds our lives together. In these troubled and troublesome times, I find that I need poetry more than ever. Poetry helps me look at slices of life, digest, and carry them deep inside me to ponder throughout the day. It has taught me lessons that only poetry can teach in its brevity. It has helped me see who I am and what things I truly value. Yes, I do believe in poetry.
That was Lori Zientara of Olive Hill. Next, we leave the Commonwealth and go to Charlotte, North Carolina, to hear from Dr. Ella Bell of the Tuck Business School at Dartmouth College.
I always knew I was adopted. And I think for me, it always gave me this comfort in being a marginalized person, if you will. But when I was 19, I actually found out who my biological mother was. I ran into a woman that I went to college with, Janora Prysock, and met her mother. Turns out that her mother grew up with my biological mother and knew my godfather, who was really my grandfather. And I never did follow up. I never did push at 19. I was too angry and too frustrated. Well, lo and behold, when we started working on the research project that led to Our Separate Ways, the first book, We went to see this unbelievable exhibit, portraits of African American women who had succeeded. Unbelievable. It was just an unbelievable photo exhibit. So we go off to this exhibit, and who do I run into but Janora Prysock? And her mother happened to be at the exhibit. Long story short, she tells me that she knew that I was really a Morton. She knew my grandfather, whose last name was Johnson, so she knew I was a Johnson Morton. But she tells me that my mother is living in Mexico, and she thinks that she can get to my family. Well, a couple of months pass, my adoptive mother dies, and I finally decide to do the search. So I look up Mrs. Prysock, and she gets a letter off to my family. What happened after that was a life-changing experience for me. I remember when I met my mother's family. My mother had passed away. I lost both my biological and my adoptive mother the same year. And I started learning about my biological mother's family tree. And I remember when I went to Yale, I started my academic work at Yale. I was so humbled to be there. I was just so shocked to be this girl child from the South Bronx with parents who were not educated, and to wind up at Yale. I remember, I was just so proud to be able to do this. And when I started finding out about my biological family, come to find out I had 3 cousins that had gone to Yale, who had graduated, one with an advanced degree out of the School of Architecture, one in mathematics, no less, and another one in African American Studies. And it was a very powerful lesson for me, because when I told my adoptive mother I was going to Yale, she really didn't know what Yale was. She actually went to the library at 84 to ask the librarian about Yale. And it made me feel that I was really a guest at Yale. But when I finally learned that I had family members that had graduated, 3 from this school, it gave me a very different attitude. It taught me, even in an elite environment, that I belonged, that I had a right to be there. And I think that has fueled a lot of my work, because of the fact, if you are a minority, if you are a woman, you need to have a sense of belonging. You need to have a sense that this is my space and my place too, that I'm not just a guest. I'm not just here because of some affirmative action bill. No, I'm here because I'm qualified. I'm here because I'm good. I'm here because I know what I know, and I know how to do my work well. That's why I'm here. I'm standing on shoulders to be here. And while I was proud to be standing on my parents who raised me, their shoulders, because they had sacrificed so much for me to be there, I also knew that I had other shoulders, aunts, uncles, and cousins who had been at this school, and I was standing on their shoulders as well. Go to the table, take ownership, bring your voice, bring all of yourself, be as authentic and as real as you can be. Make a contribution. Know that you stand on shoulders that worked hard to get you in the door.
A very inspirational story from Dr. Ella Bell for This We Believe. She's here to talk with us about her 2 books, one published in 2001, Our Separate Ways, and one that just recently came out, Career GPS, and also her work with the Ascent organization, which she founded and is the president of. Just give an overview of what your first book was about, what this book is about, maybe if it's got different themes or if you've kind of evolved as a writer between these 2 books, anything like that?
I think so. The first book was very much a research book. It was to establish myself in academia around my research passion. And it actually looked at African American women and white women and their journeys to corporate America. Many of the women, particularly the African American women we spoke to, were first generation corporate women. I worked with Stella Nkomo with this. And our goal was to tell their stories how they got there, what messages they received as young girls that led them into corporate America, and contrast that with how white girls, what experiences did they have to enter into corporate America. And then the second part of the book was to look at what was their journey within corporate America. And then the third part of the book looked at the relationship between the women in the workplace. So what was the relationship between black and white women in the workplace? The new book, Career GPS, is a flip side. After studying all the obstacles, people kept pushing me to talk about what worked. If you know so much about what doesn't work, surely you can tell us what will work. And quite frankly, I got tired of just writing, here are all the bad news stories. You know, there are ways that women, particularly young women, can succeed in corporate America, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're Asian, whether they're Native American, whether they're immigrant women, white women, as well as African American women. And this is an unbelievable time because this is the first time in the American workforce where the numbers of women succeed men, not by much. Right now in the American labor pool, there are 50.3% women. That number is going to grow because of the demographics. And a lot of the women entering the workforce, there are going to be a lot more women, and they're going to be immigrant women, African American women, and Asian women, and Hispanic women. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to write a book to say, here's everything I know about succeeding in the corporate world. And what a wonderful opportunity, because now's the time, because of the demographics, that you really need to kick the door open. So that's what Career GPS is about. And it came out February 9th. And it's a wonderful hands-on book on everything you need to know to succeed.
Tell me a little bit about your work and how you started Ascent.
Ascent, Leading Multicultural Women to the Top, is a not-for-profit organization that I founded for the advancement of multicultural women in corporate America, to help those women create a space at the leadership table where their voices would be heard and their ideas would be welcomed and utilized. So we run an executive leadership program for multicultural women, meaning all women, because all women have a culture. The other thing that we do, we actually track the women who are in our program. We're doing longitudinal research. The women work in coaching pods to strengthen and build relationships with each other and really create solid allies so they have support at work. And then the last thing we do is we work with corporations and partnering with them to help corporations advance this particular population.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I played teacher. I would line all the dining room chairs up, and I had a little chalkboard. And when my friends came over, I would actually teach. And if my friends couldn't come over, then I would have all my little dollies in the chair, and I would give them the lessons. Education has always been my thing.
Dr. Ella Bell, author of Our Separate Ways, Black and White Women and the Struggle for Professional Identity, and Career GPS. You can hear the full interview with Dr. Bell at our website, WEKU-FM. Later this hour, we hear from two women who have found home in the bluegrass and wouldn't have it any other way.